Okay, welcome to my class. We are going to talk about assignment number 1, which references skills that you learn in chapters 1 through 5 of the Adobe Classroom in a book for CS6, but could apply to a lot of the stuff in 2017 as well. All right, so I have this Photoshop file, and when it opened up, it says, we're missing fonts. And it's this one right here, and chances are you don't have it, so just click Don't Resolve, because it's going to replace it anyway. Part of this assignment is taking these text layers and replacing the text with current dates, because this is an old outdated thing. So let's just take a look at this Photoshop file for a second. We have this layer, which is the text annual. We have this layer, which is 9th. There are going to be issues with this when you import it into After Effects. It's going to disappear. If you can't figure it out, just delete the layer and make your own 9th. Okay? It doesn't have to be exactly the same, just as long as it has this same general composition at the end. So we have this camera guy. We have a vector smart object, which is the logo. We have more text. And this red texture layer. Okay, so we have a few things here. I'm just going to close this, not going to save it or anything. And then go over to After Effects, create a new project, and then I can save that or not save it. Now, first thing you got to do is import this Photoshop file, right? So Command I, and then I'm going to go to my Downloads folder since I'm just demonstrating the basics of how to do this assignment. The way you need to import it is as a composition with retained layer sizes. And I would import this where you merge the layer styles into the footage. That's not, I've done it twice today, but that's not a general rule, all right? Just so you know. Click OK. And then we have our Fest bumper. There are a few things you got to do. You got to make this standard definition widescreen, and you're going to need to resize everything to fit that, and you're going to need to create some motion for this film strip so it's constantly moving. You're going to use a combination of transform, position, rotation, scale, keyframes to make all these different objects either slide in, fade in. I would be careful with too much rotation. Make sure if you're going to use rotation, do it in a tasteful way. I'm going for smooth animations that quickly build this image in from a black screen. Okay?
Wait, when I drag mine down, it doesn't have all the folders, like all the things pop up down below.
You need to import it as a composition instead of as footage. So we have all these different layers. If I go into my composition settings and just change this to NTSC DV widescreen, see how everything doesn't quite fit on there? You're going to have to make everything fit. And I did something earlier today that I'm doing very quickly right now. That's a really quick way to start getting everything to fit. So if you remember that, then you're going to be in good shape. So I did it really, really fast. I can grab these layers and kind of move them in. But basically, we need to create a gradient in the background, which is going to be a gradient from black to a deep red. And then you're going to need to composite a repeated shape layer that's going to be moving in the background. So you're going to create your own little pattern that's going to perpetually move in the background. But I wouldn't make the animation that comes in, don't make it longer than about 4 or 5 seconds. The assignment calls for it to be either 10 or 15 seconds. Don't make the animation take that long, okay? So once you have this screen built in, pretty much all you need to do is have the background shape layers continue to move, and then this film strip just do a slight movement across in the background. Okay. You're going to convert these text layers into editable text and change the text. Do some tasteful preset animations. You're going to create another text that has some certain words that you need to say down below. But yeah, use you know, fade it and scale it in like that. Have this guy slide in from the side. Have the text materialize. The only thing I would maybe say you could do with rotation is on this one. If you wanted to do something like this. Watch. That's okay. But you don't need to have the logo go and then land in place after it's like flown everywhere it can on the screen. That's not like eloquent. Usually something that can just move straight into place and settle nicely. That's a little bit better. Yeah, and then like I say, like once everything's in, this can just kind of gently move along in the background and have your shapes repeated through the background, composited on top of a gradient ramp on a solid layer in the background. Let me do that real quick, just because you're like, gradient ramp? What is that? It's in the book. Promise. Totally promise. Let's make this that color, that deep color. This is me just showing off. Look how fast I can work. Okay, so I just did part of it. And then you need to make a shape layer that repeats. I did my own screen recording about making shape layers and repeating them. The book does it in one of the chapters. And it also it goes into using the brainstorm function for creating random variations of shapes. You can use the twist effect and wiggle paths and stuff like that to create your patterned look that will be just like blended with this background layer that you see. Okay, so that if you want to, you can also keyframe the start of the ramp so that it starts here and then it can, like, toward the end it can move to the other side, or vice versa, as you can see. So it moves across. Just something to kind of like subtly animate. But the key is with this, not getting too crazy, but also not taking too long with it all either.
Where is the file that we need to get for that? Is it on our homework?
It's on the assignments. So if you go to the first assignment in the description, there's a link to this PSD that you can download. It's also in the files section of the class. So I'm doing this really, really fast because you need to, you can watch it and try to follow, or I want you to do it your own way, okay? So I want you to use all the techniques that are spelled out in the assignment, but I want you to put your own flair on it, okay? You'll actually kind of get docked if you do exactly what I'm doing here, like exactly.
Real quick, what's the difference between easy in and easy out again? What would you use either?
Easy in versus easy out. That's a good question. Let me finish fixing this, just changing this date here. All right. Let me zoom in on this here. See how this keyframe is an hourglass? It's curved both sides. That's an easy ease. It means it's easy in and easy out. Okay. What easy in means is as you're approaching it from the left, you go into it. As you leave it, you go out of it. Okay? So if your animation is approaching that keyframe, the easy in will slow as you approach it. And then as you're leaving that keyframe, it'll gradually increase. It'll accelerate as you leave it.
Okay.
So easy in approaches the keyframe, so eases in, and then easy out goes out of the keyframe. That's the only way I can really describe it. Most of the time, the key command for easy ease is F9. So I always almost just hold my function key on my Apple keyboard, hit F9, and most of the time that just takes care of what I need rather than doing an easy as in or an out. What an easy ease will do is it'll add auto Bezier to the path of the position keyframes. If you've got multiple keyframes and you just throw easy ease, it'll Bezier the path of that keyframe, which can create some issues. And that's when you would want to remember to use ease in or ease out. But most of the time I just hit F9 and then I adjust the speed of the keyframes manually, because I usually end up adding extra easing, which we'll get into later also. Okay. All right, any other questions? Yeah?
For easing in and out, I know in other programs like 3ds Max, there's a curve editor.
Yep, okay, you did it. Let me show you the curve editor. If you have a keyframe selected, this is your curve editor right there. You can edit the graph manually. This is a value. This is like how much, this is like a position in numbers, X and Y, or X and Y. Red is X and green is Y. Or you can do it in speed. So if you want to change this to the speed graph, this is moving fast. This is moving slower, slower, slower to a stop. Okay. So if I want to grab this handle and yank it this way, it makes it whip really fast down to a really gradual stop. So let me show you. See how it was really extreme? Started out really fast and extreme easing. It's like 100%. I can make it even worse if I drag this influence to 0. Super fast, almost not moving at all. Okay, so that's the graph editor if you want to get into adjusting the speed of those keyframes even more. There's a manual way to do it too. Command-Shift-K will bring up the influence. So see how, remember how I drug that all the way out? I made it 100%. You can actually adjust that to different numbers. Well, there was a intermediate technique for you for this for this assignment. Anyway, that is your orientation to this assignment. I'm not going to do the whole thing because I don't want you to become too influenced by what I'm doing. I want you to take your own creative license with this. So good luck.